If you're watching this right now, it means we pulled off something almost nobody thought was possible. We did a 100 million book launch, not because of hype, not because of luck, but because we treated this launch like a business, not a gamble. And if you pay attention, you'll see the exact principles that make anything you want in life inevitable. Most people think success comes from one big break. That's a lie. Success is just stacking the right moves in the right order until the result is unavoidable. A book doesn't make 100 million because of one viral post. It happens because every decision, every test, every channel, every ounce of leverage was designed to compound. That's the real game. Most people miss this because they're chasing the wrong target. They think the goal is to look impressive, to sound smart, to create something that strokes their ego. They don't realize the market doesn't care about how smart you look. The market only cares about one thing: does this solve my problem? If the answer is yes, you win. If the answer is no, you lose. It's that simple. When we launched the book, we didn't start with marketing. We didn't start with headlines or hype videos. We started with the product itself. And the only question we asked was, how do we make this so good that people can't ignore it? Because if the value is undeniable, the launch becomes easy. People line up. They talk, they share, and that does the heavy lifting for you. Here's the harsh truth. Most books fail before they're even published. Not because the author didn't work hard, not because they didn't care, but because they created something nobody needed. That's the fastest way to waste years of effort, building something that doesn't solve a painful problem. The market doesn't reward effort. The market rewards solutions. So when we sat down to build, we reversed it. Instead of asking, what do I want to write about? We asked, what problem do people have that keeps them up at night? What do they desperately want solved? Once we found that answer, the rest became clear. Every page of the book had one job: deliver solutions so good, so actionable that people couldn't help but feel the ROI immediately. And this is where most people mess up. They think value is about information. It's not. Value is about transformation. If I can Google it and get the same answer in 30 seconds, it's not valuable. But if I can't figure it out without you, if your solution saves me years of trial and error, that's value. That's when the market pays attention. When you make something so valuable it feels unfair, people will do your marketing for you. Think about it. When's the last time you recommended a movie, a podcast, or a restaurant? You didn't do it because they paid you. You did it because it was so good you couldn't not talk about it. That's the standard. That's what makes something spread, and that's why value comes first. The 100 million wasn't the result of advertising tricks. Ads can get attention, but they can't make someone love the product. That's the product's job. You can trick someone into buying once, but you can't trick them into telling their friends. Word of mouth only happens when the value exceeds expectations. And here's the kicker: delivering that kind of value is harder than it looks. It means you don't stop at good enough. It means rewriting chapters until the message is crystal clear. It means testing ideas on real people before publishing. It means cutting everything that doesn't serve the reader. It's brutal. It's uncomfortable. But that's what it takes to create something undeniable. So when people ask, what's the secret to a 100 million launch? The answer is boring. It's not some hack. It's not some loophole. It's simply this: build something that is so damn valuable, so undeniably useful, that the market feels stupid for ignoring it. That's the game. And once you understand that, you realize success doesn't start with hype. It starts with value. You can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows it exists, it might as well not exist. Distribution is everything. People underestimate this because they get obsessed with the product itself. They think if they build something great, the world will magically find it. Wrong. That's not how the market works. The market is crowded. Attention is scarce. And if you can't get your product in front of people, it dies in silence. Think about it. The cure for cancer, sitting in someone's garage, doesn't save lives. It doesn't matter how valuable it is. If people can't access it, it's worthless. That's the brutal truth. Value without distribution is just wasted potential. Distribution turns potential into impact. Distribution is the bridge between your product and the people who need it. When we prepared for the book launch, we didn't wait until release day to figure out how people would find it. That's what amateurs do. They finish the product and then scramble to market it. By then, it's too late. We built the distribution first. We built the audience, the partnerships, the platforms, the relationships. We stacked as many channels as possible so that when the book dropped, it didn't whisper, it roared. And here's something most people don't want to admit: distribution often matters more than product in the short term. A mediocre product with world-class distribution will outsell a masterpiece that nobody hears about. That doesn't mean you should settle for mediocrity. It means you can't treat distribution like an afterthought. It has to be part of the DNA of what you're building. We created content months in advance. We showed up everywhere: podcasts, social media, interviews, collaborations. Not to pitch, but to plant seeds. We weren't waiting for the launch date to get attention. We were already earning it. By the time the book was ready, people weren't just aware, they were anticipating it. That's the difference. Launches don't create demand. They release demand you've been building all along. And distribution doesn't just mean ads. Ads are one channel, but they're rented attention. You're paying to borrow eyeballs. What matters more is owned attention, email lists, communities, platforms you control. Ads can spark awareness, but owned distribution builds security. That's how you weather algorithm changes, platform bans, or rising costs. When you own the channel, nobody can take it from you. The other piece is partnerships. Why try to build everything from scratch when you can tap into someone else's audience? If someone has already spent years building trust with your exact customer and you can align with them, that's distribution on steroids. One introduction, one collaboration can shortcut years of grinding alone. That's the power of leverage through distribution. People think distribution is some complicated formula. It's not. It's simply about answering this: where are the people I'm trying to help already paying attention? And how do I show up there in a way that makes them care? That's it. The platforms change. The strategies change. But the principle doesn't. Attention flows to those who meet the audience where they already are. Here's the bottom line. Building distribution isn't optional. It's the lifeline of your business. Without it, even the best ideas suffocate. With it, even good ideas thrive. And when you combine great value with massive distribution, the outcome becomes unstoppable. That's how you go from selling a few copies to a 100 million book launch. Not by chance, not by luck, but by making sure that when you speak, the whole market hears you. Most people fail because they think they already know. They assume they know what the market wants, how people think, what will work, what won't. And that assumption is the most expensive mistake they'll ever make. The truth is, you don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows until the data proves it. That's why testing isn't optional. It's the only way to replace ego with truth. When we launched the book, we didn't rely on gut feelings or personal taste. We tested everything. The title wasn't chosen because it sounded cool. It was chosen because it performed better when shown to thousands of people. The cover design wasn't based on what we thought looked nice. It was based on which one people clicked more. Every decision was validated in the real world, not in our heads. That's the difference between professionals and amateurs. Amateurs guess. Professionals test. Testing kills ego. Because sometimes the thing you're attached to is the thing the market doesn't care about. And if you can't kill your darlings, the market will kill your launch. We had to let the data win, even when it hurt. There were hooks we loved that flopped. There were ideas we thought were brilliant that didn't move the needle. If we'd forced them through out of pride, we would have lost millions. The discipline was in surrendering to the numbers. And here's the thing, testing isn't glamorous. Nobody posts about running 10 variations of a headline and watching which one gets a slightly higher click-through rate. But those small differences add up to huge outcomes. 1% better here, 2% better there, it compounds. By the time you scale, those small edges create massive results. Think about it like this. If you're shooting arrows in the dark, you might get lucky once. But if you test, you're turning on the lights. You start seeing exactly where the target is. You stop wasting energy. Every arrow has a higher chance of hitting. That's what testing does. It removes luck and replaces it with certainty. But testing only works if you're willing to be wrong. Most people aren't. They want to be right more than they want to win. That's why they stay stuck. They'd rather protect their ego than face the data. But the market doesn't care about your feelings. It rewards whoever serves it best. If you can get comfortable being wrong, you unlock the ability to always get closer to being right. That's the superpower. When we tested, we didn't stop at the surface level. We tested everything we could control: pricing, copy, visuals, offers, positioning. We didn't ask, will this work? We asked, which version works best? That shift changes everything. Because it's not about one shot, it's about iteration. You keep dialing in until the message lands like a hammer. Here's the lesson: you don't need to be a genius. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to be willing to run the tests. Let the market tell you the truth, then adjust. If you do that relentlessly, your odds of success go up so high that the result becomes inevitable. That's why our book launch wasn't a gamble. It wasn't luck. It was tested into certainty. Every piece had been refined by data, and when you stack enough tests, you create something that feels like destiny. Relentless testing makes failure almost impossible because by the time you launch, you're not guessing anymore. You're just executing what's already proven. Most people think the way to win is to just work harder. They try to squeeze more hours into the day, sleep less, push more, grind endlessly. And while effort matters, effort alone has a ceiling. There are only so many hours you can work, so much energy you can spend. The real unlock is leverage. Leverage is what takes one person's effort and multiplies it into something far bigger than they could ever do alone. When we launched the book, it wasn't one person's hustle that made it work. It was leverage. Leverage of platforms, leverage of audiences, leverage of resources. One person working 100 hours a week is still outperformed by 100 people working 1 hour in the same direction. That's the math. That's the reality. Leverage shows up in different forms. The first is people. You don't have to do everything yourself. In fact, you shouldn't. There are people out there who are better than you at certain things: design, copywriting, video editing, logistics. If you try to master it all, you dilute your focus. But if you bring in others, if you align incentives, suddenly you're multiplying your output. That's human leverage. The second form is media. One video, one podcast, one email can reach thousands, even millions of people at once. Compare that to knocking on doors or having one conversation at a time. Media is leverage because it scales your voice beyond your physical presence. You make the effort once, and it works for you over and over again, 24/7. The third form is money. Money is stored effort. It's work that's already been done, waiting to be deployed. With money, you can buy speed, you can buy attention, you can buy distribution. You can run ads, you can hire talent, you can acquire resources. Instead of working for years to build something from scratch, money lets you compress time. And the fourth is code or technology. A piece of software, a system, and automation, these are leverage machines. They let you do more with less. Instead of manually doing repetitive tasks, technology multiplies your efficiency. It's why one person with the right tools can outproduce entire teams stuck in outdated systems. When we applied leverage to the launch, the game changed. We didn't try to personally reach every potential reader. We built systems that reached them for us. We didn't try to convince every influencer one by one. We built partnerships that created a chain reaction. We didn't spend months doing tasks we could outsource. We paid for speed. That's why the launch scaled. Most people resist leverage because they want control. They don't trust others. They don't want to spend money. They don't want to learn new tools. So they stay stuck at the level of their own effort. And the irony is they work harder for smaller results. The people who win aren't the ones who do the most themselves. They're the ones who build machines of leverage that do the work for them. Leverage is how you turn a launch into an event. It's how you make impact at scale. It's how you turn one idea into something that touches millions. Without leverage, you're capped. With leverage, you're limitless. That's the difference between someone selling a few copies to their friends and family versus someone creating a 1 to 100 million launch. So the lesson is simple. Stop trying to do it all alone. Find the leverage, people, media, money, technology, and stack it. Every piece you add multiplies your effort. Every piece you add compounds the outcome. Leverage is the great equalizer. You don't have to be the smartest, the richest, or the most talented. You just have to learn how to multiply what you already have. And when you do, results that look impossible suddenly become inevitable. Most people lose because they only play for today. They want fast wins, instant results, quick payoffs. They chase hacks, shortcuts, and shiny objects. But the truth is, the biggest outcomes don't come from a single play. They come from playing the long game. And the long game is where trust is built, momentum is created, and empires are made. When we launched the book, people saw the explosion. They saw the numbers. They saw the headlines. What they didn't see was the years of deposits we made before we ever asked for a single withdrawal. Every podcast episode, every video, every post, every piece of content was a deposit into the bank of trust. And when the book finally launched, we weren't begging people to pay attention. We were collecting on years of goodwill. That's the power of the long game. Trust is the currency of the long game. If people don't trust you, they won't buy from you. And trust isn't built overnight. It's built brick by brick, interaction by interaction. It's built by showing up consistently, by delivering value without asking for anything in return, by proving you're the real deal when no one is watching. Most people aren't willing to do that. They want the reward without the investment. And that's why they fail. The long game is about thinking in decades, not days. It's about asking, if I keep doing this for the next 10 years, will it compound? Will it build equity? Will it create something that outlasts me? Because the truth is, momentum compounds over time. One action done consistently for years beats 1,000 half-hearted sprints. The people who look like overnight successes are almost always the ones who've been playing the long game in the dark for years. For the book launch, we didn't try to manufacture hype out of nowhere. We played the slow game of building audience trust. That meant giving away value for free long before we sold anything. It meant prioritizing relationships over transactions. It meant focusing on reputation instead of revenue. Because when you protect your reputation, revenue will eventually chase you down. The long game also requires patience. And patience is rare in a world addicted to speed. Everyone wants a shortcut. But shortcuts usually cut results short. The long game is slower at first, but it's exponential later. Imagine pushing a flywheel. It barely moves in the beginning. But with every push, it stores energy. And one day, it spins so fast you can't stop it. That's how the long game works. Here's the reality. If you're only thinking about today's sales, you'll burn tomorrow's trust. If you're only playing for short-term gain, you'll always start over. The long game creates durability. It creates assets that keep working for you even when you stop. That's why the launch worked. We weren't starting from zero. We had years of stored momentum behind us. So the question isn't, how do I win today? The question is, what game am I playing that guarantees I win over the next 10 years? If you can answer that, then success becomes inevitable. Because the market rewards consistency, integrity, and patience. And the longer you play, the fewer competitors you have, because most people quit too early. The long game isn't sexy, it's not flashy, it's slow, disciplined, and often invisible. But when the payoff comes, it looks like magic to everyone else. That's the irony. The long game hides in plain sight, and most people are too impatient to stick around long enough to see the compounding effect. But if you can, the results will dwarf anything you could have gotten chasing the quick win. That's the truth. If you want extraordinary, you have to commit to the long game. And once you do, you'll realize time is your greatest ally, not your enemy. Consistency is boring, and that's why most people avoid it. They want excitement. They want novelty. They want to constantly start new things because starting feels fun. But winning doesn't come from starting. It comes from staying. It comes from doing the same critical actions over and over again long after the excitement wears off. That's what ruthless consistency is. And that's what separates people who wish from people who win. When we did the book launch, it wasn't some last-minute sprint that made it happen. It was the accumulation of thousands of small actions done consistently over time. Every email we wrote, every video we published, every relationship we nurtured, every test we ran, none of them looked like they mattered much in the moment. But stacked together, repeated over months and years, they became unstoppable momentum. That's how you go from invisible to undeniable. Most people underestimate the power of momentum. They think success is a one-time push, a single breakthrough moment. But it's not. It's the flywheel effect. You push once, and it barely moves. You push again, and it moves a little more. You keep pushing day after day until suddenly the wheel is spinning on its own. That's consistency. And the reason most people never get there is because they quit in the early pushes when it feels like nothing is happening. Consistency is brutal because it demands discipline when motivation is gone. Anyone can show up when they're excited. Anyone can work hard when it's new. But what about on the 10th day when it feels repetitive? What about on the 100th day when the results still haven't shown up? That's the real test. And that's where 99% of people quit, which is why the 1% who stay consistent end up with all the rewards. We didn't show up just when it was convenient. We showed up every day, not perfectly, not with fireworks, just consistently. That's the secret nobody wants to hear. The person who sends one email a week for 5 years will always outperform the person who sends 100 emails for 1 month and then burns out. The person who posts consistently, who learns consistently, who improves consistently, they will always win in the end. Consistency compounds. One action by itself doesn't change much, but repeated actions change everything. Think about exercise. One workout doesn't transform your body, but hundreds of workouts stacked over time make the change undeniable. The same is true in business, in relationships, in launches. Each small action feels insignificant, but over time, it's the only thing that creates massive results. And here's the kicker: consistency doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing the right things relentlessly. If you pick the wrong actions and stay consistent, you just get really good at going nowhere. Ruthless consistency means identifying the few actions that actually move the needle and then committing to them with discipline, no matter how boring it gets. That's what we did with the book launch. We didn't chase 100 different tactics. We picked a handful of moves that mattered, and we executed them relentlessly. We kept the message consistent. We kept the outreach consistent. We kept the content consistent. And over time, that consistency became our advantage. Competitors would show up for a moment, make some noise, and disappear. But we were still there, brick by brick, building momentum they couldn't catch. The truth is, consistency is the cheat code. It doesn't require genius. It doesn't require luck. It just requires endurance. The willingness to keep showing up when everyone else is gone. If you can master ruthless consistency, you will outlast, outwork, and outperform almost everyone. And when the results finally come, they won't look small, they'll look massive. But they'll be nothing more than the byproduct of tiny actions repeated consistently over time. That's how the launch happened. Not with magic, not with hype, but with ruthless consistency. And that's how anything worth building is done. So here's the truth. This launch wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was the byproduct of principles anyone can use: value first, build distribution, test relentlessly, use leverage, play the long game, and stay consistent. That's it. If we can do this with a book, you can do it with anything. The only question left is, will you stack your moves or will you keep waiting for luck?